All right, so ready to dive deep into another film.
Let's do it.
This time, we're taking a trip back to 1987. Back to the glory days of Italian horror.
Ooh, yes, a great era.
We're talking about Michele Soavi's Stage Fright. And let me tell you, this movie has seriously messed with my sleep over the years.
It's one of those films that really sticks with you. I mean, visually, it's just so striking, and there's this underlying creepiness that just burrows under your skin.
It's a slasher, but like elevated,
Absolutely. Like, you think you're getting into this straight-up slasher flick, and then Soavi throws all these curveballs at you.
Okay, so before we get too deep, let's set the stage for our listeners who might not be familiar with the film. What's the basic setup?
So we've got this group of actors rehearsing for a musical, get this, in an old, abandoned theater, the play they're working on. It's about a killer owl.
Talk about foreshadowing, right?
And of course, this being a horror film, it's not long before things start to go very, very wrong.
Yeah.
So there they are, stuck in this creepy, locked-down theater. And then a real killer shows up. And he's wearing this super freaky owl mask. Like, giant, oversized. It's terrifying and kind of surreal all at once. And like any good slasher villain, he starts picking off the actors one by one.
It's worth mentioning Soavi's connection to Dario Argento at this point. I mean, he worked with Argento on some seriously iconic horror films.
Right, he was Argento's assistant director for a while. You can see the influence for sure, especially in how Stage Fright uses color and, well, stylized violence.
Oh, yeah. But what's cool is Soavi doesn't just copy Argento. He does his own thing with it. The atmosphere in Stage Fright is different, like dreamlike almost.
Totally. And the way he uses neon lighting, it adds this whole other layer of unease to it.
I mean, think about the setting, right? They're trapped in this theater. It's claustrophobic. And on top of that, they're rehearsing this play about a killer, which starts to bleed into reality.
It's like he's blurring the lines between performance and reality, making the audience question what's real and what's staged. You start to think, could art actually drive someone to do these horrific things?
I feel like that's one of the things that makes this movie so effective. You can enjoy it on a surface level, like a good old-fashioned slasher. But there's also this whole other layer of commentary going on. Like, what is it about horror that fascinates us?
Right. It's like he's holding up a mirror to the audience saying, you're enjoying this, aren't you? This blood and mayhem.
Speaking of blood and mayhem, can we talk about those kill scenes for a minute? So Avi really goes for it.
Oh, yeah. The special effects are incredible. All practical, too. You can feel the weight and impact of every stab, every slash. And he uses the theater setting in such creative ways, like incorporating the props and set pieces into the kills.
It's brutal, but you can't look away. There's this scene where one character gets killed with a nail gun.
Brutal. That one's hard to forget.
So it's a slasher. It's got this incredible atmosphere. It's got these amazing and super gory kill scenes. But like we said, there's more to it than that.
Oh.
What about the owl mask itself? It's more than just a creepy costume choice, right?
No, definitely not. The owl mask, it's like the symbol of, like, faceless evil. You never really see the killer's face, which makes him even more terrifying, you know? It could be anyone under that mask.
It adds to this idea that evil can be lurking anywhere, even in the most familiar of places. And then there's the whole theme of vulnerability, especially in the context of artistic expression. These actors are literally putting themselves out there on stage, making themselves vulnerable. And then, in this really twisted way, that vulnerability is exploited.
Right, and it makes you think about how artists in general, they open themselves up to criticism, to judgment. It takes courage to put your work out there for the world to see, but there's always that risk of, I don't know, like someone taking it too far, misinterpreting it.
Yeah. Stage Fright is definitely a film that makes you think about the darker side of creativity. It's unsettling, sure, but I think it's also a really fascinating exploration of these themes. And, you know, in a weird way, it makes you appreciate the bravery of artists even more.
Absolutely. It's not just about the scares. It's about what those scares say about us, about the world we live in.
Exactly. Stage Fright, it's not your typical slasher flick. It's got style, it's got substance, and it's definitely earned its place as a cult classic.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, for a movie about stage fright, it really makes you think about what it means to be an audience member, too.
Ooh, I like that. That's good.
We're all watching this unfold. Just like in the film, the audience in the theater is watching the play, and then the lines get blurred. Who's watching who? Who's performing for whom? It gets all meta, you know?
It's a mind trip, for sure.
So to all our listeners out there, I'm going to leave you with this. The next time you settle in to watch a movie or a play or even just listen to a song, think about those boundaries. Think about where the art ends and reality begins. Because as Stage Fright so brilliantly shows us, sometimes Those lines can get really, really blurry. And that, my friends, is where the real horror lies.
And scene, we nailed it.
We did? All right, on to the next deep dive.
I can't wait.